Good evening. I'm Shirley Romaine, and this is Art Scene on Long Island, a program in which each week we bring you the artists and performing arts groups who enrich the quality of our lives here on Long Island. My guest this evening is Martin Schreiber. He is a resident of Nassau County on Long Island. He is a painter with a very strong taste for the abstract. Welcome, Martin, to Art Scene.
Thank you.
I'm delighted
Nice
that you're
to be
here.
here.
Now, you're just completing a show, one-man show, which is entitled 46 by 46 at the Wisser Library, which is at the New York Institute of Technology. I
Yes,
think it's
correct.
just about to close.
Yes, it closes on the 18th.
Yeah, has it been a good show for you?
Yes, very well,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
you've
Yes,
had
it's been well
traffic
attended,
and-
and I think the students really love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's very good.
Yes.
Tell us about 46 by 46. That's an intriguing title. What
Well,
does that mean?
it's a span of 46 years that I'm showing 46 paintings in.
I see.
Counting from
Okay.
1946 to 1992 is 46, so it was a
So it's
logical thing to
46
do.
and 40, that's very
Of course,
good.
I've done work before that, obviously, but I think this my major development started then.
Well, let's go back to 1946. You know,
Okay.
I always say let's start at the beginning.
All
That isn't
right.
the beginning, but that's a good place to start. Even sooner, actually, because I think you said you were born in Berlin,
Yes,
and you came to the United States in 1938.
November 1938.
Yes, on a very auspicious date.
Yes, my family left the day before Crystal Night, so we were very fortunate to
You were
leave Germany
indeed, you were
intact.
indeed.
My father had just come out of a concentration camp,
Uh-huh.
a political concentration camp, and that was the reason he could get out, is that we had to leave Germany.
Well,
that
what an
was-
auspicious
Yes,
date
yes.
to leave Germany.
We were lucky to have many lives in
were
a
you
way.
indeed? Were you indeed? Were you always interested in art? I mean, as a young person, or
Oh,
did you
yes.
come to it from another area? How did it?
Oh yes, but my mother was very artistic.
Yes.
She was a millinery, and she did extremely difficult work and very beautiful, which we still have.
Beautiful embroidery, you
Embroidery,
said.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so it's in the mix. You know, I always think those
I
things.
think so. Of course,
you
we
know,
have
they
to
do
thank
have-
our genes
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that.
You did say that during your career, you worked as a diamond cutter, you worked in an advertising agency.
Yes.
You also, when we talked, you said that at heart, you were really an engineer.
Well, yes, I
But
like.
you were a
I like.
painter.
Yes, I like scientific things, and I like precision things. And so I think that reflects on my work. I started early as my first year or two. I painted realistic paintings.
Yeah,
and
I was going
found-
to ask if you came from the figurative to the
and I found
abstract.
that even though I could do it, they did not satisfy me. I felt that I was not seeing the whole world.
Did you study formally when you came to this country?
And I went to the Brooklyn Museum Art School, and I studied with the late Reuben Tam, Mr. Keenbush, and Moses Sawyer, and I think that was about 4 or 5 years under the GI Bill of Rights. It was a wonderful time.
Yeah. You know, there are places, I've had a number of artists on the program, and that Brooklyn Museum School is a very important place where many of them started or passed through
Yes.
and really had exceptional training. I mean, they
Yes.
all talk about it.
It's still a very fine museum, one of the
Yeah.
finest, I think, probably next to the
Yeah,
Met.
yeah, yeah,
It's just
it is.
neglected.
Yeah, well,
Shame.
it is too bad. It's a wonderful
Yes.
museum, Brooklyn Museum. I was going to ask, you said that you did paint figuratively
Yes.
first, and it didn't quite satisfy you. Is that really what pushed you to the abstract, or was it somebody that you studied with, or, you know, what made you, made that leap?
It's very hard to define. I went from a realistic to an abstract, somewhat figurative. And then it became geometric, and it became still quite lively, what I call lively. What I mean, it was quite aggressive. And later on, as I found myself, my work became more controlled and like the squares, for instance.
Okay,
like
we're gonna look at all of that,
Right.
and you'll have a chance to explain that.
Right.
Before we look at your work, and we do have a lot of work, and I should mention that we are surrounded by it, which makes it very nice.
Thank you.
Is there anything, I ask this question a lot because it's something that I'm very interested in, what is the genesis of any given work for you? Is it an idea? Is it something seen, something heard, a relationship with the material, all or none of the above?
No, I think it's everything. We all are observers of what happens, whether we read the newspaper or we read a good book or we see a movie. But I'm also interested in human relations, and I hope it reflects in my work. And it's a matter of development or affinity. Colors change gradually, say from a hot chroma to a cool chroma, and as they do, they expand in size. And I think this is what happens with human relationships too. We become closer through experience. Also, we disengage or we become angry, not at one single event, but a culmination of little events that finally come to a break. And this is, I also feel that historically I find that things have repeated themselves all over the world, over centuries or millennia, in many similar ways that are reflected today. So there's a matter of time span involved. I'm very much interested in time.
Yeah. So really what you're telling me is that it's an idea that kind of generates
It's a feeling
your
and
idea.
an idea. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that every artist must have an idea before he can put anything down.
Yeah.
And I hope I can do that.
Yeah. Well, then how do you work it out? For instance, you sent me some material that I read, and you said the painting begins with a core.
It's an event.
Now, was that just a specific painting, or is that applicable to all of your work?
It's applicable to much of my work. It's either a core or it's a major event. It's like an entrance. It's like a creation. It's like a bolt of energy in a way that is then disciplined.
And so that is the core.
Yes.
And from that comes
development.
the
Then come
development of the
stages.
energy.
Major stages and minor stages. It's very musical in many respects. I'm very fond of music, classical music, or all kinds of music, but classical in particular. And I analyze, when I hear a piece of music, I analyze it, and I see how I could benefit from this as a painter.
So music is a source of inspiration
very
for you.
much so, yes. Architecture, I love bridges, I love
architecture.
boats, I love...
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you said you were an engineer at heart,
It's
so
hard,
I guess
frustrated perhaps.
I guess it all
but,
kind of checks
yes.
out.
It's one discipline or another one. I think I like to be a disciplined person.
Do you, when you go to your studio, do you find that you're able to work for long periods of time without
I get
interruption?
completely lost.
Yeah,
In fact, I'm no longer tired.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
it's,
so many artists say the same thing.
Yes.
Even sculptors, you know, physical, hard physical work, but the
Yes.
time just
yes.
vanishes.
It's wonderful, really. I think artists are very lucky creed.
Yeah, yeah, you are indeed. Listen, let's look at some of your work. We have painting and sculpture. As a matter of fact, it's the work that is surrounding us. Why don't we look at it, and as we go through it, tell us whatever you wish about any of the pieces,
fine,
okay?
Fine.
So let's
Which
go
one
to the
shall we
tape, as
look
they
at?
say. Why don't
Okay.
you look at the monitor, and we'll pick us up, and you'll see what we're going to look at. That's first.
I see. It's a painting on a diamond. The bands or the coils are actually white, very thin bands that go to a green and then into a red. What happens is, we're already on to the next
okay,
one.
well, let's
go on that one?
Yeah, keep talking,
Okay.
yeah.
And the bands create energy because they change thickness. And they create a pressure from the change of chroma.
How about this little one, the little one? Well, here,
Well,
let's go.
that's meant to be somewhat three-dimensional because the bottom tangent swings out optically, and then I have collages tipped into the painting, which give me a sense of scale, and of course it's a little bit of poetry in a way, because it doesn't say anything specifically. You have to make up your own mind what you're looking at. But there are time elements in there. There's a clock up there, a time clock up there, and there's shading with a flower, which is, again, coming and going, or sense of time.
Very interesting. In one of these, the one that's behind me, do I sense Gauguin's lady friend from Martinique?
Yes, I think one of my favorite
Oh,
painters.
Gauguin. I agree
Yes.
with you. I agree with you.
Yes.
What does she represent in this painting? I mean, tell me something about it.
I'm a little selfish in the sense that I just happen to love this painting, and
Okay.
there's no other reason that
Okay.
I picked this one.
That's fair.
Yes,
That's
I
fair.
think it's fair, and I love fruit, and I like things that are organic as against things that are mechanical, because they offset each other, they complement each other so
it's
well.
the juxtaposition that kind of makes the
Yes,
makes the statement
you know,
for
it's like a clock, like a little timepiece, the old wind-up clocks, not the modern clocks. And they have little wheels and they have big wheels, and it's the little wheels that make the big wheels go. And in a sense, it's the little decorative, if you want to forgive me for saying decorative, because I really shouldn't say this as an artist, things that make the bigger things come to life.
Whether you want to call it the spill or the background, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it.
Right.
It's interesting. The last time I did an interview was with a painter, also an abstract painter. And she started as a figurative. She started with a figure and then with landscape. And one of her teachers, somebody that she really thinks very highly of, said, you know, I'm just fascinated with the background. The background really gets to me. Well, you know, those kind of shook her up as it would anybody.
Yes.
But she began to look at the background.
Yes.
And that's what moved her in that direction. So I appreciate what you're saying.
No, I admire people that paint realistically.
Yeah.
But it's not what I want to do.
No. And she too went from a very realistic mode to an abstract mode, but it was kind of concentrating on that background, on the spill or whatever it was, that really moved her in that direction.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I was particularly interested in your own statement of what your work is about. Maybe a little more specific than what you discussed earlier, but let me just read this because I was very taken with it. I think perhaps painters of yesteryear were more philosophical than our contemporary brand. So when I read something like this, I'm really quite taken with it. You say, to find oneself is to look around, to see what is, what preceded, and what may follow. In our own mind, then, we select what is important in our relationship as we know it. It is a continuous band, a story of life and of change and of interplay and infinite variations. The beauty and magnitude of what life presents to us to comprehend. This is what I like to paint about.
Yes, I think that's very true, because many times when I have my color bands and I start from one color and I start bending it to another color, and I say to myself, where do I stop? Have I done it enough, or am I overdoing it? Where is the end? And it's hard to say. However, I do think geometric painters have the edge on freeform, because they more or less know when they're done with a painting. Somebody who's very free has a problem knowing when he or she is finished with the painting.
It is a problem.
Yes, it is a problem. But I do feel if I'm satisfied, I pretty well know that I've done it.
Yeah.
Which is.
It occurs to me that your work is really very rhythmic. Of course, you were talking about that when you talked about music and so forth, but it's extremely rhythmic for work that is geometric and so on. I think it has great movement and rhythm. But I want to get back to this statement.
Yes.
You speak of relationships as meaning ourselves, friends, casual encounters. Does that go beyond that? Does that go to nations, to mankind?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it goes to everyone.
So you really include the whole universe in what you're talking about.
You can't stop. Once you start, you can't stop. I mean, where do you draw the line? Where does your relationship stop? Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, hopeful, and you also say that you are hopeful that the world will get along. You know, that's also in there. That kind of harmony.
I do think sometimes I think I'm a little static, but I am not. There's an input, and I have to build the excitement inside the painting, and still find peace.
Yeah. Well, now you said for you the square is the perfect form. What did you mean by that?
I felt that, say, an oblong rectangle has direction because it is more aggressive on the long side, and to me that's very aggressive. And when I was younger and more idealistic, I felt very optimistic for the world. And so the square or the circle, but the circle is more of a sinking shape, but the square is perfect. It has perfect right angles, equal sides, and it has no force. Unless you turn it on a dime, and then it has a little bit more of a force. And I built around my square, and I built bands around it. It was to me like breathing. I was expanding, stopping, expanding again, and then quiet. But whatever the artist does, whether I do it or someone else could do just the same thing, it's your own personal sense of drama that makes the painting on that.
That's so
Does it make
interesting.
sense?
Well, it
Yeah,
does.
I hope
It
so.
does. And you know, we've been talking a lot lately about what you can talk about in terms of the creative process and what you do, and then the part that is just mystery, and that is very personal. You know, you've come very close to talking about it.
Yes, that's
But
true.
it is, you can't, you know, it's just so internalized and so much a part of you that you can just go so far, and the rest is just very subjective, very personal.
It's a wonderful thing to be creative and to feel that you are completely in control, not like life is.
Right.
Perhaps like we would like it to be,
Right.
but it's not. But the painting you can control.
So that ordered aspect of painting is something that's very attractive to you.
Yes.
I mean, you look at work by many painters, which is quite chaotic. You look at Jackson Pollock and you think, oh, no order. Another kind of order, a different kind of
You
order.
know something, Shirley? I always liked Jackson Pollock, but well, okay. In my last 5-10 years, I see that my feelings have changed. I now realize that there are so many chance things that are wonderful, that you can't determine everything.
Right.
You can't build everything.
Right.
So you have to leave it to chance. And
Right.
if you're lucky, it works out fine.
Yeah.
So I now see a lot of beauty in chance objects.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I appreciated Jackson Pollock more than I did
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I find that amazing.
Well, it's
Someday, if I live long enough, I'm going to be a realistic painter.
But it's an order of a different kind,
Yes.
really. I think
Yes.
that's what you're saying.
Yes.
I must say that over the years you've had some wonderful critiques of your work. I mean, some really first-class critics who appreciate you. Malcolm Preston and Karen Lipson of Newsday and the New York Times and Arts Magazine, and you've had many one-man exhibitions at the Corcoran Gallery in Washington, D.C., at the Pleiades Gallery, which I think represents you here
Yes,
in New York.
Soho, yes.
The Spectrum Gallery, the West Broadway Gallery, and many others. And also the Documenta Gallery, was it, in Sao Paulo?
Sao Paulo, Brazil, yes.
How did you happen to show in Brazil?
I have a first cousin in Brazil. And he introduced me to a gallery, and
Was it interesting? What was the reaction?
so different
Yeah.
than us. Yeah, I find that they are very protective towards their own artists. Unlike us.
Yeah.
We are very open to anyone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's for
Yes.
sure. Listen, we have some more of your work.
Yes.
This is on slides. We're going to look at paintings, and then we're going to look at some sculpture.
Fine, wonderful.
Okay?
Let's
All right,
have a
let's
look.
have a look.
That's a piece of chrome-plated steel. The wings are progressively bent towards, so if you were to look at it, it makes an oval. If you were to look at it from the top, it would make an oval.
Oh, it's here in the studio. This is what we have in the
Yes,
studio.
that's right.
Now let's look. Tell us about this one.
That's a wall piece. I imagine it's Picasso's guitar.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
going to say, is it a
But-
musical instrument?
Yes, but it's made out of, well, there we go. Let's see. That's another chrome-plated sculpture.
Piece,
Yes.
So I'll hold still. Okay, now,
Yes,
I think we
again.
have some slides of
Yes.
your work. These were in the studio.
Yes,
We just
yes,
showed paintings,
yes.
but here we go.
Yes.
Here's
That-
one of the
yeah,
slides.
That's quite a large painting. I think it's about 46 by 60 inches large. And it's a piece of engineering. What else can I say?
Well, and it must be a great favorite of yours because it does have such movement, and I think it's on the invitation to your show, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very nice.
Thank you. This was a series of painting I did for Halley's Comet, and this is more or less my if I may say, my idea of the heavens. I think every artist has done it.
Why not?
Has
Yes.
done a heaven, and I found it a very exciting project. I have little universes within other ones, and
then we have...
this is a large painting. It's about 84 inches long. This is actually a work on paper. It's an acrylic on paper, which is called The Creation. And there's a female woman on top, which incidentally is the latest thing, that we all came from females. All the men came from females, yes.
Oh, yes?
Yes,
We just discovered
no
that.
No surprise, right? Well, I mean in the biological...
Yeah.
The other sense,
Yeah.
yes. This is a wall painting. It's three-dimensional. It's about 18 inches off the wall. It's constructed out of a skin of masonite that's with canvas glued on it, and then it's painted.
It's very attractive. Very nice indeed.
Thank you. Yes, I have a series of those at home, my studio,
Now
which is getting smaller and smaller.
And now we have
Yes.
the sculpture. Tell
These
us
were
about
boxes. The smallest box is a foot square by 3 inches deep, and then they graduate inside. So the last tall one is 4 feet tall. And they have a red core on the left-hand side, if you can see that, and the outside is black. And they can be assembled in any formation or any construction that you may want. I think we have some. Now,
Yes.
these are 4 pieces put together. 1, 2, 3, 4, if you can see that. The tallest one is about 18 inches tall, 15 inches tall, then we go to 9 inches and 3 inches in
Very
height.
nice.
This is a construction of the same units. I had a lot of college friends of my daughter come to the house, and they had it on the floor, and they played with this unendingly. They had a wonderful time with this.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Because you can do almost anything with it.
Yeah.
This is a wall piece that's made out of 3/4 inch plywood. The canvas is glued onto it, and then it's painted. It's about 48 inches across, something like that. I'm very much into that now.
Oh, this is what you're doing now. This is
Yes,
the latest
yes,
work. Very
yes.
interesting. Very, very interesting indeed.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this, Martin. When you are working three-dimensionally in sculpture, is the process different? I'm sure it must be. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I think it's a little bit more playful. There's another dimension to experiment with. And I think we're very much affected by different materials, found objects, or technology in a way. So it does affect you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are there painters or sculptors who you feel have influenced you? I mean, work by artists whose work is kind of, you have not emulated, but have in some way stimulated you?
It's very hard for me to say. I love everybody.
No, but I mean, can you say that anybody was an influence in any way, or is everything an influence?
Ask me about music, I can tell you.
All right, tell me about
Bach.
music. Bach.
Would be Bach.
Okay.
Or Vivaldi.
Vivaldi, that tells us a lot.
Yes.
That's very
Okay,
structured.
okay.
Once again,
Or
very...
Mozart, of course.
very-
How could I
very-
forget Mozart?
Mozart,
So,
of course.
So that's
Of
easier
course.
to talk about that than art for me.
Uh-huh.
Who stimulated me?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting.
I tell you, I like to find out how everything ticks. I get very interested in the most mediocre objects that is produced commonly for consumption, and I ask myself, how was it made, and how wonderful it's made, and how much thinking there was behind it, how much history is behind it in developing it to this present stage, that we could make things like that. So it's everything,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, everything. Everything is grist for your mill. That's
Yes,
interesting.
yeah.
Though I think the music is really, I'm very interested in that, and that that those composers should be the ones who have most influenced you. I mean, they're wonderful, but there's a great sense of order and structure and form,
Yes.
in that
Right.
in that music.
And drama.
In addition to all of the wonderful, everything that is wonderful,
Yes.
very structured. I do want to read something here that I thought was very nice, that was in a review in a magazine, Manhattan Arts. He's describing the work. The painting that we saw, the one that I said was on the cover of your invitation. And he says, Schreiber, while Schreiber imaginatively combines all the diagonals and verticals of a modified science, light comes from an interior energy created by the vibration of subtle color changes, This change being a metaphor for the indiscernible events that form and shape and move our society. Speed is gathered in the soft-edge atomic accelerations in Schreiber's work, excuse me, reaching out toward a new future of less frightening science.
It's wonderful.
Now, did that come from you, or was that
Oh,
something that
no,
he...
no. You know, I can't talk about my work.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will come up to me and say, oh, this is wonderful. I see this in it, and I see that in it. I said, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
But this is
yes,
clearly
this is
somebody who
wonderful.
really got a
Yes.
sense of the inner movement,
Right.
the vibration, the thing that and the fact
Right.
that
There
you
wasn't-
are reaching out toward a new future of a less
Right.
of less frightening science.
Right.
Which
That's
I think
true.
is, if he got that
Yes.
message, he was really tuned in to what you were
Right.
doing.
There was another interview which I don't know whether you still have it.
I don't have it with
Okay.
me.
It's
But
fine.
what
It's
was
fine.
the gist of it? Is it something that you might want to
It
talk
was
about?
talking about the three-dimensional wall painting.
Yeah.
I can't say it. I don't know what to say.
Oh.
But this person put it in wonderful verbiage
Mm-hmm.
that I can't. It's
Let me
nice. It's nice to know that some people can see things in
Yeah,
artist work
yeah,
and can be
yeah.
able to.
Especially something that is so subliminal, that it doesn't just come out and say,
Right.
this is it. You
Right.
know, it really is a,
Right.
somebody has to be
Has
tuned
a
in.
feeling for it.
Yeah, to get it, you know, on your own wavelength. Let me ask you this. In selling your work, and this I'm sure has gone on over the years, do you have any problem parting with your work, or do you find that?
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
No, I'm going to do lots more. That's the way I feel about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And if somebody wants it bad enough,
yeah.
or wants it,
Mhm.
I'm very happy.
Yeah.
To let
Okay.
it go.
Maybe it's because you've been doing it for a while and a lot of your work has been sold and whatever. But
It's
many artists really
accumulating.
have, yeah,
It's
really have a
accumulating, and-
hard time letting go of that work. They really do.
Well, it's true that certain things we can never do again the same way because we can't put ourselves back in the same time slot or the
Right.
same circumstances.
Right.
But so what? We
Yeah.
go on. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
fun is we on to better things.
You know, you've produced a lot of fine work in your life with lots more to come. But if you had a fondest wish, if I were to say your fondest wish is going to come true as an
Yes,
artist,
that's a good question.
what
Very
would it
good.
be?
A very large studio
Yes.
with all kinds of equipment, machinery that I need, and I want to cut some stone.
Stone.
Yes. Yes. I want
Does
to
that
do
mean you want to begin to work in stone?
Yes. Right. Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
When I get a little older.
When you get a little older.
Yes,
Okay, but
yes.
that's really very nice.
Yes.
You know, we have run out of time, but this
Oh.
has been a very interesting time.
I
I've
enjoyed
enjoyed it very
talking
much.
with you. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much, Martin Schreiber.
Thank you, Shirley.
Good evening. I'm Shirley Romaine for Art Scene. See you next time. Good evening. I'm Shirley Romaine, and this is Art Scene on Long Island, a program in which each week we bring you the artists and performing arts groups who enrich the quality of our lives here on Long Island. My guest this evening is Anita Brown. She is